Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I am the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Ultiworld senior editor Keith Rayner. It is Thursday, July 27th, and we are getting ready for the first round of the AUDL Playoffs. Last weekend, AUDL season wrapped up. There wasn't too much on the line, but there was some, and it actually ended up being very interesting, perhaps even a bit surprising. Before we get into those games, just want to break down really quick who is in the playoffs. If you're just paying attention right now, we got you covered. In the Central Division, Minnesota, 10-2, wins the division. They will face the winner of the Chicago Indy game. The Indianapolis Alley Cats finishing second in the division. Chicago at a very mediocre 6-6 gets into the playoffs as the 3 seed. In the East Division, New York, 12-0, undefeated, incredible season continuing. They will face the winner of Boston and DC. The Breeze finishing second in that division. Boston dispatching Philadelphia earlier, and they get through as the 3 seed in the East. In the South Division, the Atlanta Hustle go 10-2, and they will host the championship game in the South. They will face the winner of Carolina at Austin. Austin goes 9-3. World's softest schedule. We'll talk more about that. And the Carolina Flyers kind of limp in at 6-5. I guess they ultimately finished 7-5. They played on Tuesday against Dallas, aka like backup Raleigh players, in a bizarre like makeup game that had so weird. And like the league, I guess, approved Dallas just signing like 15 Raleigh area players for this game. Kind of a laughable situation. And then in the West, the Salt Lake Shred go 11-1, only losing to the visiting New York Empire, and they will face the winner of Los Angeles and Colorado. Colorado getting the 2 seed, and LA gets it done. Keith, the Oakland Spiders go 0-2 last weekend, dropping first a game to the Aviators by 1, and then somehow, some way, losing in the back-to-back to the San Diego Growlers. And they missed the playoffs. And Keith, I am big mad because I picked this Oakland team to make the playoffs at the beginning of the season, and they blew it.
Yeah, I mean, you said that LA gets it done, and really it was Oakland comes undone. The Chokeland Hiders, if you will. I stole that Chokeland from somebody. Somebody tweeted Chokeland, but I'm adding the Hiders myself. That is big tough to lose the last 2 games of the season, both with like a couple of seconds remaining on the clock, giving up the game losing scores in both cases. Just a brutal end of the year for a team that had been kind of the cardiac kids for the season and could not come up with either of the games they had to have. And this is a black eye for the franchise that they'll carry forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough to go on the road. It's tough to play a back-to-back, but you got to go and clean it. And you know what? Honestly, they didn't even need to put energy into that LA game. They could have just saved legs and focused on winning the San Diego game. And instead, they, come close but fail to tie it up against LA, and then San Diego just plays great offense and probably plays their best game of the season to knock Oakland out. And man, it's a brutal way to go out. And I was listening to the AUDL podcast, Swing Pass, about this past weekend, and they were talking about whether the best team made it, whether LA had proven to be the best team. And I think the answer is absolutely not. They said, yeah, LA is the better team, but I don't think so. I think Oakland over the course of the year was clearly the better team. And I think the whole AUDL apparatus, they were all in on LA from the jump because they got Pavel, and it's like, oh my God, Pavel Giannis is going to reinvigorate this LA team. And really, LA was kind of not that good the whole year. And credit to them. They won this game that they had to win, and then Oakland failed to achieve a win against kind of a bottom-feeding San Diego team. But I think it's totally wrong to say that LA has been the better team or is the better team. And I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable win for Colorado coming up here this weekend.
Charlie, are you saying the fix is in to get Pavlianis to championship weekend? What a strong accusation.
Don't put words in my mouth. It's not what I said.
Yeah, but what a wild weekend. I hope that the playoffs can build off some of this energy because thankful because that week 13 slate looked real. What's worse than mid? It was just bad. It was looking bad coming in. I was like, wow, it's tough to have your final week of the season feel totally irrelevant.
Yeah, but I mean, they had a really good weekend. 2 weeks ago, right? So that happens. There just wasn't much left on the line, and you never really know. But it ended up being very interesting. So we've got all 4 games coming up on Saturday, the 29th, and they all start within like 2 hours of each other. So it's going to be, multi-screen type situation. We've got Chicago at Indy, Boston at DC, Carolina at Austin, LA at Colorado. So we don't necessarily need to keep looking ahead too much right now. Let's just focus on these matchups. We can start in the Central. Chicago at Indy. Indy certainly was the better team over the course of the season, but do you like Chicago's chances to upset the Alley Cats?
So you look at, we'll discuss quickly the head-to-head. Indy gets the 19-16 win in Chicago early in the year. They beat Chicago again in Grand Park, 26-17. So Indy with the favorable side of this matchup coming in. You can't say that Indy's been super convincing this season. They have had some real patches of rough play, often getting wins despite the fact, maybe to the discredit of the Central as a whole. But the Union have not done themselves any favors either. They have not covered themselves in glory. So this feels like a game that it's going to be the team that doesn't lose it that wins it, if you know what I mean. There's part of me that I've been on the Alley Cats train from the jump, and there's part of me that wants to say, okay, the Union are going to have the postseason experience here, and that's going to make a big difference when there's so much pressure on the Alley Cats. And the Alley Cats have just been so unconvincing this season. But I feel like I kind of have to stay stuck to my priors here. I think the Alley Cats probably have a better team and are more motivated to do well. So I think I'm going to take the Alley Cats, but this feels like a coin flip to me. I'm not going to lie to you.
I don't know if I quite go there. I mean, the Union have been kind of ugly. They've looked terrible in the last couple of games. They just lost to Madison 22-17. This is not, you can't compare this team to the Chicago team we've seen in the past, including the team last year that was very good. I don't think it's out of the question that they can beat Indy in Indy, especially because it's the indoor track meety type field. It feels like it can level the playing field a little bit. But their offense has been ugly, and Indy has been pretty solid. I don't know that I think that this Indy team is going to get past Minnesota, but I think that they're going to pretty comfortably take this game against Chicago.
What's the line here? Let's set a line here.
Oh man, what was the score of their last game?
It was 26-17 or something. It was not close.
I think it's Indy minus 3.5. I don't think it's that big.
Yeah, I also don't. I don't think that it's that big either. But Indy minus 3.5. Okay,
could be a little wider than that. I don't know. Everybody should be able to score right in this field.
Yes,
it should improve the Union turnovers that have been a problem the last couple of games. But I don't know. It's the Central is so terrible as a division. Let's move on. Let's go to the East. Boston at DC. I mean, DC remains one of the best teams in the league. Boston did just enough to get into the playoffs. This should be a blowout. I mean, is there any world and this is not a blowout? Like DC minus 5.5, 6.5, something like that.
That feels like the right line to me. DC beat them by 4 in Boston and by 7 in DC. Boston, credit to them for reaching the postseason for the first time, but this feels like they're punching above their weight. For me, this feels like a game where Boston's going to have one good run in them. It'll be close for the period of that run, and then the game will get out of hand. It could work the other way, I guess. We could see DC go up a bunch, Boston makes a run in the second or third, plays it tight for a little while, and then DC pulls away. But either way, I think you're going to see DC with a comfortable win by game's end. So 6.5 is a lot. I think I would take Boston to cover something like 6.5. I think you're going to see DC win by 4 or 5.
Yeah, should be a pretty comfortable win. I just think like the quality of the players on the rosters is a total mismatch. And honestly, even though it's a playoff game, like I still harbor some concerns that we're not going to see full strength glory. I mean, like I feel like at road games, you never know what you're going to get with this team for real. I mean, they should travel strong because it is a playoff game. I mean, let's check.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look it up.
Even I won't doubt them for the playoffs.
I'm always a little skeptical. I mean, there's definitely good players who are not rostered. I don't know. I'd have to like dig deeper into their lineups. They have a couple injuries. Brendan McCann is out. No Kervick. It's a fine. It's not super weak. It's not like they're missing Ben Sadok and stuff like that. But they don't have the firepower to beat DC. DC's a lot closer to New York than Boston is to DC.
I agree with that.
Okay, next game. Carolina at Austin. That game goes off at 8 p.m. Eastern, so 1 hour after the first two games. And are the Flyers a road favorite?
Well, let's see. So they've got the 7-goal win over Austin in Carolina, and then the next time that they faced off was in Austin, and Carolina won by 2. So. Yeah, I mean, they're 2-0, even though Carolina's felt a little listless is strong, but like they haven't really been locked in, I would say, this year. So I guess I harbor some concern about that, but of all the teams, I mean, this is the team I think that you got to feel the most confident, knows how to put it together in the postseason.
Keith, I just checked the rosters. No LSB, no Gooch. No, obviously still no Eric Taylor, no Ben Snell, no Henry Fisher, no Ben Dameron, no Rutledge Smith. I mean, I still think that the talent favors the Flyers. I mean, they have still plenty of strong players out there, Alex Davis, Joe White, Hawkins, Yannick, but like they're missing a couple of their best players.
Yikes. However, they do seem like have some experience playing without a number of these guys, right? I mean, LSB, I think, played like 4 or 5 games all year. Joe White has also missed a bunch of time. They've been really relying on, Anderson, Fairfax. Those have been Saul. Those have been core players for them. But yeah, you surely don't want to be missing top level talent when you're going into a tough playoff matchup. That it's definitely wavers my confidence.
What is the line on this game?
I mean, I think you still have to make Austin a dog, right? Unless you're going to make it a pick'em.
It's got to be close.
But it's a slight dog to me. Yeah, I really can see the argument for pick'em.
Austin is so fraudulent. I mean, this team is only the 2 seed in these playoffs because they got to play Dallas and Houston like a million times. And do they have any wins over playoff teams? Did they beat Carolina in Austin? I think you just said this.
No, they're 0-2. They're 0-2.
I'm taking Carolina even with a shorthanded roster, and I think that the line is probably like Carolina minus 1.5, minus 2.5, something like that.
Yeah, I think 1.5 feels right to me, and I'm going to take Carolina to win.
Okay. All right. We'll see. It's certainly not a slam dunk with some of those players missing. The last game, which goes off 30 minutes after the Flyers Soul game, is the LA Aviators at Colorado Summit. It's the game of the week. We've seen great crowds in Colorado. Does this Aviators team have a chance against the team that qualified out of the West to Championship Weekend last year?
No, they don't. I feel that unless that may have just locked in a win. And I was high on Colorado coming into the year, right? I had them to win the division. I said that I thought they were in the tier with DC and New York. I don't know if I could still back that up at this point. Colorado beat LA 18-15 in LA and then 18-14 in Colorado. So 2-0 there. LA has done nothing to impress all year. Colorado has had their moments. I still think they're fearsome. They've that huge win over Minnesota. They've gone toe to toe with Salt Lake. So I think this team is going to dial it in and play well at Championship Weekend. So I've got Colorado, and I -3.5, -4.5,
something like that. I think that the Aviators haven't been consistent enough with their offense to feel like they can hang in with a very good offensive team in Colorado. They've been better of late. I think it's probably their better offensive games of the season to beat the Spiders. But the Spiders' defenses look terrible this weekend. Colorado's going to put a lot more pressure. I think we're going to see a lot more turnovers. I think of the games, I'm trying to decide which is the most likely upset. I mean, I guess it would be Austin over Carolina just because it's like the worst team is at home. But I think the Aviators have a chance because I think the Summit have been a little bit up and down themselves. But I just think that, we're looking at Colorado's losses coming against New York and a very, very good Salt Lake team. So,
and Oakland. I think they lost to Oakland somewhere.
They did drop that one game to the Spiders. I mean, yeah, probably -3.5 to Colorado, but I definitely have to think about the line.
Okay, so we're on the same page, except for in the Central, right? You pick Chicago. Oh no, you picked Indy.
No.
So we have identical.
I take
picks.
Indy big.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm taking the favorites.
With our identical,
I'm taking the favorites.
Let's say all four of these teams advance.
Okay.
Who has the best chance of upsetting a division winner?
I think all of the teams will have a chance. I really do. We saw what DC can bring against New York last year. And I think they will absolutely have a chance to beat New York again this year. Indy shouldn't beat Minnesota, but Minnesota is not some kind of world beater. I think probably Indy has the least chance to win. Carolina absolutely can beat Atlanta. They'll probably have a maximized roster for that game. And while I think Salt Lake will certainly be the favorite, especially playing at home, I think I've seen enough from Colorado to know that when they're at full strength, they're going to be tough out.
What's super really weird?
Championship games in each division.
What's super weird to me is that the order that I would power rank these hypothetical wildcard winners is also the order that I would power rank the teams they're going to go up against. So the best wildcard team is going to go up against the best division winner, and so on and so forth. So it's like, I think Indy's probably the worst of these four teams that will advance, is presumably, but they're going up against the worst division winner too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's
true. Scaling where you think the which I mean maybe just goes to show you divisional strength. The divisions were pretty striated this year. So finding where you feel like the most likely upset is pretty difficult. I think, given how close Colorado and Salt Lake have played and how high I've been on Colorado this year, I think maybe I think they're the best bet for an upset. but maybe it's I could see a convincing case for basically any of the teams, which you're right, makes for a compelling weekend.
It's going to be interesting. You know, like we've seen surprises in the playoffs, and I think some of the teams that have to go on the road, like if they were playing at home, might be the favorites. It's going to be a fun playoffs. You know, I think we finally get to drop all these weak teams, and you know every division had a couple teams that were just sort of easy wins most of the time, and get to the good stuff. And I'm excited. I think it's fun to have all the games the same day, all within a couple hours of each other. Hopefully we can, you know, hopefully they don't all go down to the wire, because then it's gonna be hard to watch the key moments in each of them. We need Field Pass for this weekend, huh?
Maybe we should talk our title picks and matchups, some sleepers and stuff like that in our subscriber bonus. What do you think?
Oh, subscriber bonus. I like that plan. So that will be inside of our Out the Back segment coming up when we finish up that recording after this segment. So that's going to do it for this chat on the AUDL. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the upcoming SFI East. We've also got some notes about the Masters Championships, which happened this past weekend. So lots to come. US Open 2 weeks away. It's kind of nice. We get a really nice cadence coming up here, because we've got AUDL first round playoffs this weekend. Then we have the US Open next weekend. And then we have the AUDL second round playoffs the following weekend. And then I think we have Elite Select. And then maybe we get a week off. No. Then I think the very next weekend is AUDL Championship Weekend. And then we have Pro Champs. So we got a little something all the way through Labor Day from here on out. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll break it all down here on the show. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk SFI and Masters. Stay with us. Welcome back to Deep Look. The Masters Championships were this past weekend in Aurora, Colorado. Stretched it out to 4 days, so they kind of staggered some of the divisions. We got Masters, Grandmasters, great Grandmasters in men's and women's, and lots of, you know, I think mostly went to general expectations, Keith, but there were some big surprise upsets in some of the key games, semis and finals. Let me just run through the winners really quick, and then we can chat a little bit deeper than that. In Masters, men's division, Boneyard beats Voltron 2020 in the final in what is honestly a pretty good rival going right now in the Masters division. In mixed, Salt over Atlanta Fox. Masters women's Reboot Squad, pretty dominant, unsurprising, very, very strong roster over Soar out of the Dallas area, Reboot Squad out of Boston. Grandmasters men's Johnny Walker beats Surly GM. Grandmasters mixed Molasses Disaster over Surly GMX. And Grandmasters women's Molly Blue over Elderflowers. GGM men's Immortals beats Surly GGM. Immortals out of Salt Lake. It's kind of / Pacific Northwest. And then GGM women's The Silver Sisters beat the Per Sisters. So Keith, any notes or thoughts on some of these winners?
Yeah, I mean, you're right that Boneyard Voltron matchup is. I don't want to quite say it was like, oh, this is the collision course, because Johnny Encore and All Bashed Out both performed admirably on their way to the semifinals, and there are probably a lot of names that if you've been following Club Men's Ultimate, you're going to recognize across these four rosters, especially in that final. But Boneyard gets a pretty convincing 15-9 win in this matchup.
Beatdown.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to have to give a lot of credit to Boneyard for this win in this chapter in the rivalry. You know, and a lot of these players are players who we've seen playing Elite Club Ultimate recently, some of whom still are playing Elite Club and Semi-Pro Ultimate. So not a big surprise to see these two teams at the top, and it's impressive rosters and Boneyard with a strong performance.
Yeah, I mean, Boneyard's got guys who are actively on elite club rosters. A lot of guys who maybe just left Ring. And it's just like, it feels like a real club team. Now, when you say, I think you can mostly say the same thing about Voltron, but some of the big names on Voltron are guys who have been out of the game for 3 or 4 years at this point. I'm still surprised to see them lose by 6 because they do have guys who are still actively competing at a very high level. I mean, Jack Hatchup's on this roster. Cody Bjorklund, Mario O'Brien, Jay Clark. And then they have guys who've been out of the game a little while. Karlinski, Tim Garrett. But, it surely feels like when you look at the roster, you're like, wow, they're so talented. And they are, but so is Boneyard. And I think we got to continue to give credit to this North Carolina triangle area because they just continue to put out awesome teams in all divisions.
All right, in the mixed division, this was I see that Salt was the 5 seed. I'm not entirely. I have no idea how they do seeding for this tournament, but when I look at this roster, I see top seed. This is basically the mixtape alums. It's Kelly Johnson, Cam Bailey, Lexi Garrity, Drew Johnson, Hannah Kawhi. Not just alums, people who actively are still playing Kyle of Ultimate. Evan Klein, I think he just left the roster too. Jennifer Ricarte is out there. Paige Kircher. This is a very unsurprising win for Salt in my mind. I'm more impressed that the Atlanta squad made a run to the final. The Fawks, who are recognizable names for Southeast folks, and there are a couple of people who might stand out from mixed nationals appearances or play in semi-pro leagues or whatnot. But this is not exactly quite as star-studded, aside from Nikki Spiva, I guess would be the big name on this team, as some of the other rosters are. But respect to the Atlanta folks for showing up, because we've seen the Atlanta mixed scene put some great teams together. It just never really stays consistent. So maybe Masters is a great place for that group.
Would any of these teams make club nationals?
In any division, in any of the divisions?
Well, yeah, sure.
Or just mixed.
Yeah.
Well, this Salt roster feels like it could make club nationals to me.
It just depends on whether they could get a bid. But yeah, I mean, for real, they're really good. But I mean, the top teams, the Atlanta team, Nikki Spiva, Dragon Rust lost to both of the top 2 teams, otherwise won all their games. And, also super talented. You've got Vanutka, Caleb Denacor, Melissa Dunn, lots of players, current or former Dragon Thrusters. There's enough talent where you can be I could imagine them getting not winning the division, not winning their region, but getting a bid. Sure. I could see it.
The one maybe that has the best chance could be Reboot Squad. I mean, they kicked everybody's butts pretty much in their division, and the only downfall would be that they're in the Northeast, right? If you could pick them up and throw them in another region, they got Claudia Tajima and Kami Groom and Amber Sinacrope and Becky Malinowski. These are people who are still doing it, right? Mex is on this team, I think you feel pretty good.
This begs the question: is the Masters age limit too low? I mean, I don't want to tell people they can't play. And 33 for men, I think it's still 30 for women. It's not crazy, but when I'm seeing players who are still world-class club players on these Masters teams, I'm a little skeptical that maybe we shouldn't push the age up another year or two. Maybe it's not quite time for that yet, but it's just I don't know.
If the division were at all about fans, then yeah, maybe I would feel differently about it. But this feels like a division that's very much for the players, and so
it's for fun.
If the players want to do that, if the players are hey, instead of having us go up a division or whatever, can we tighten things up a little bit down here? The playing population is big enough that we don't have to siphon players up into this group in order to have playing opportunities. And maybe that's not true. Maybe while it does empower some of these big elite teams, maybe there are teams at the margins who otherwise wouldn't be able to form, and they need that. So maybe you could build in some sort of system where you're applying for exceptions based on numbers. I don't know. Whatever the players want to do is cool with me, because this very much seems like it's for the players.
And it's clearly a very successful endeavor. I mean, I think USAU, the divisions continue to grow. The tournament continues to grow in size. I don't love the way they did regional stuff this year, and I don't think a lot of teams loved it either. But at the top end, it hasn't made a difference. And these are competitive teams, and they're making nice money on all these people buying memberships. So very successful, playing opportunities being created here. And it's like the right level of serious, It's like it's not overkill. It's not too much qualification required, but it's still like competitive at the highest level. And but mostly people want to go to Masters Nationals because it's fun and they get to play with their friends from the past, and I think that's just fine.
All right, give me some team name hits. You can skip the ones that we like, that we know, and I think we've talked about, that we liked before. Like we like John Concord. It's a great name.
Sure. Let me scroll a little bit here. Shout out to the Super Drosts. I don't even need to look at that roster to know that that's a New York team. I've liked this one before, but I still like it, so I'm going to say it. Rusting Bridge Face. That's really good.
It's definitely good.
Junkyard. It's solid. Like, I like the when they have the sequencing with the other teams.
I also enjoy that.
I do like Molasses Disaster a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what it means, but it is a good name.
There was, look it up, hit it up on Wikipedia, folks. Molasses Disaster. Basically, there were these huge vats of molasses in Boston that burst and then flooded the streets, and it was this horrible. I mean, it was terrible, but like people were just getting swept up in giant molasses oozing through the streets, and it happened a long time ago. So I guess that's the concept.
I'm learning new things. Names that I like. I like Mint in Masters Women's. Simple, clean, just like an actual mint. Gets right to the point. There's another. Oh, I like two from Grandmasters Mix. I like both Archive and Dial Up. Again, like gets the point across quickly, referential, topical. I like both of those. So those ones jumped out at me.
Good stuff. And then we've got this like surly super, like everything's surly. It's like boring. Surly GM, surly GGM, surly Cougars, like surly GMX. Like, hope they're getting
the
lots
older
of free
you
beer.
get, the more I think you can go like even more punny, like Age Against the Machine or Further Off Their Rockers, which is another one of those like progressive names.
Yes.
I like both. Zombie Maker.
Right. Let's turn back to the current rather than the Masters, and we've got SFI East coming up in Columbus, and as is the case with the select flight invites, this is not necessarily going to feature lots of club nationals teams, but it's got plenty of hopefuls and teams that are maybe going to be jockeying for potential bid for their region. The top seeds in the women's division: Siege, Indie Rogue, Stellar, and Rival. On the mixed side of things, you've got Red Flag, Moondog, Kansas City United, and Cleveland Crocs. Those are like all basically bubble teams to get to club nationals. And on the men's side, Goat, Phantom, Blueprint, and Colonels. So it should be an interesting weekend. Do you think the one seeds are going to just sweep it up here, Keith, or are we going to see some surprises?
That's the most likely outcome to me. I do think there's a chance for surprises, particularly the mixed division feels like it's got the most balance, even though you have a team like Red Flag that we have in the top 10 in our power rankings. But I do feel like, Goat and Siege feel like they're probably on a different tier from most of the teams that they're going to compete against at Select Flight Invite. They may not deliver on that in entirety. We've certainly seen plenty of oddities from GOAT performances in years past, but the mixed division is the only one I have a little bit of uncertainty about who the top teams are, and I think they have the deepest field too in that division.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think when you look at mixed, it's like, okay, what's Moondog got this year? Can Kansas City United finally make the jump? Croc's roster looks pretty good. So,
and you got Ramp. Don't forget. Don't sleep on Ramp.
Ramp. 5 seed Ramp. Coming off of.
Hey, look, they
lost to Public Enemy and AMP at PEC, but I mean, they should outperform. I mean, would it shock you if this team won?
No, it would not.
Me, the way that they've put up results so far. But it's cool to see some teams like traveling quite a ways to play in this tournament. Definitely the expansion of like PEC and Select Flight has opened up more spots. We're seeing more teams earlier in the year. And I think we're at the point in the season for me now where it's like, this feels like real tournament results. It's like, I'm going to look at these and I'm going to take it seriously. 2 weeks ago felt a little early still to be paying attention to the results from these club tournaments. But now that we're here, kind of right at the end of July, getting set to go into US Open next week, it's time to, the rubber meets the road. And this is where you can, win a bid or lose one.
Yeah, I do think, like, even though I expect the top seeds to mostly be strong in the other divisions, I do think that, like, out of that tier, there's some real potential wackiness. In part because I don't know if I necessarily agree with the seeding and how I might power rank the teams with what little I know about them. But like when I look at these seeds, I do see some low seed teams that I would not be surprised to see them, make quarters or finish second in their pool or challenge to win their pool. Men's division. There's that Phoenix team out of Ottawa. They've got Alec Arsenault and Brandon Adibe, and they look pretty strong. I'm going to be really surprised if they finish fourth in their pool, as their 13 seed indicates. Delirium's got a bunch of guys from University of Georgia. Beacon has like Justin Perticone. Like I think that these teams definitely stand a chance to outperform their seeding. And then in the women's division, Starling is a team that we have in our top 25. They're the 8th seed. I think that they could definitely finish in the top 4. I kind of expect them to do so. Notorious CLE is another team that, has a long standing. I don't know exactly who they're going to bring from their actual full roster to the tournament, so I'm a little less confident in them, but they're seated pretty low, I think, for a team that could potentially do more than that down the road. So I do think there's some chance for upsets down the line, even if at the top, I feel like pretty good about what we've got up there.
All right, it's time to make our picks. Let's start in the women's division.
You just want to pick our winners here?
I'm good with that. I'm taking Siege.
Yeah, that feels right to me. I'm also going to take Siege. I think they're the biggest favorite, even bigger than GOAT.
I think Indy Rogue will make the final too. I might as well pick the finalists. I think Indy Rogue's undefeated. They crushed 3 seed Stellar 13-7 back at the beginning of July. It would be real interesting if they upset Siege. They haven't played anybody good yet, so
that would definitely make for some drama.
Keith, who are you taking in the mixed division?
So we're both taking Siege over Rogue. Is where just to make sure I got that.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I like Starling, but I'm not sure I could construct a case for them to get that far. Mixed division, hardest division, huh? I think I'm gonna go Red Flag over Ramp. Maybe actually, you know what? Maybe I'll take Ramp over Red Flag.
Wow.
It's good to have reps early. Maybe I'm not. Nah, they're not that talented. Okay, I'm gonna go Red Flag over Ramp. That's my final offer.
I really want to pick Moondog, but they have like good results over good teams, but then they've also lost to kind of bad teams, so I don't really know what to make of all that. But then they beat Mixtape. I'm gonna take Red Flag over Moondog. But I'm very curious about Ramp.
All Northwest.
All Northwest. And finally, in the men's division, do I believe in GOAT? Not really, but I also don't believe in these other teams. Who's on Phantom this year? They're all right. I'm gonna take Phantom over Goat.
Yeah, that feels like a classic early season result. Let's see. I'm looking at this Blueprint roster. I think they picked up Jacob Cowan this year. He is not on this tournament roster. They look a little thin.
Jeff Powell is still on Goat. My God.
I'm gonna go. Man, I actually want to pick that, but I think that they're gonna play in semis.
This Goat team has the same players it had like 6 years ago.
Maybe it's Masters Goat. Maybe they got the wrong weekend.
Like that.
Maybe they're confused. Man, I really want to pick Goat over Colonels, but they're gonna play in semifinals. Yeah, I said it. I guess
Colonels?
I guess I'm gonna go Goat over Phantom then.
Okay. This is going to be really interesting to see who kind of shakes out toward the top of this. You know, like Mallard.
I still think quarters is where the drama is here.
Mallard is not terrible this year. I don't even know some of these teams.
I mean, they're no Mallard too, but
a la mode San Antonio team. Nah, don't know these guys. Well, let's see.
I actually like to play a game where it's like have a club roster with no players I recognize on it. It's pretty hard. But I do occasionally come across a roster with literally a name, not a single name that I know.
It's hard to get one past you, Keith.
It is. I think there's just one on the last seed in the men's team that I recognize. One name. But
what's the name? Say it out loud. This is the Flying Dutchman.
Let me pull up. Yeah, the Flying Dutchman out of Columbus, Ohio, which used to be Eric Coglianese, or if that's how you say it. He was on Ohio State. For sure.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what happens at SFI. We should have some streams coming from SFI East if you're looking to keep an eye on the action and maybe tune in for the finals. So stay on the lookout for the streaming schedule. And then we'll be at US Open in force. We're going to have a lot of streams from US Open. So make sure that you get your subscription and maybe sign up this week. You can watch SFI East games. Get ready for US Open. We'll be doing 2 games per round for standard subscribers, a bonus 3rd game for all access subscribers. Throughout the weekend, we'll be covering YCC as well on Sunday and Monday. And pretty exciting. We are going to be, for the first time ever, doing some broadcasts on ESPN Plus. So we are doing some of the production for the ESPN games during the semifinals rounds on Saturday. So that's pretty exciting. We'll definitely look forward to getting your feedback on that. And we'll be doing a little bit more of that later this year as well. Before we sign it off, it is time for our mailbag question of the week. Remember, you can always get your mailbag questions into us at deeplook@ultiworld.com, at deeplookpod on Twitter. Keith, what is this week's question?
So this week's question, it comes from for Teresa in the Discord. What's the likelihood of any title repeat in any division?
So any repeat in any division?
In any club division, yeah.
Right.
What's the likelihood? It's increasingly uncommon, right?
It is increasingly uncommon. I would still put it at about 40%. Is that too high? I don't think so. I mean, Mixtape and Molly Brown are both going to be teams that are maybe the preseason favorites. And I think Bravo is not, but clearly they could win again, given what we saw from them last year. I think, any repeat at all, 40% chance. Would you take that bet, Keith?
So that's plus 150 odds. Any repeat, 40% chance. I probably could do the math based on the odds that we've placed thus far on how close we get to 40% with a parlay here. I don't think I would put money on it, but it's pretty close. Like I think I would consider it because I have said that I think Mixtape is the favorite in the mixed division, and I think Molly Brown's in the title contending tier, which is good in the women's division. And then Bravo, it's like you have a
it feels very
puncher's chance even.
Yeah. It's not a high likelihood, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty close to being 40.
Molly at full strength is going to be really tough to beat, especially coming off of the confidence building year they had in 2022. I mean, like Manu is just so good. Like, is she the best player in club women's right now?
Could be. Claire Trope might have something to say about that.
Yeah, it's fair.
I might take that actually into 150 plus 150.
You know, to have all three sweeps would be like, I don't even know, 30-1.
Yeah. I mean, to get the Bravo
Repeats,
sweep is
not
already
sweeps.
the Bravo repeat is already a long shot, but to get all three, oof. Yeah, 30-1 is you're getting there. You're getting in that neighborhood.
What's the last team to go back to back? I'm trying to think it's like hasn't happened in a while. It hasn't happened in like a decade in men's, over a decade. And it hasn't happened in mixed in a while.
AMP 2019, 2018. Is that probably right?
Maybe. Did they go back to back?
Yeah,
though?
I think that's the last. The 2019, 2018 AMP and 2018, 2017 Fury.
Yeah, that's the last time. Wow. It sort of suggests that the number should be more like 20% or something, but I don't know. We haven't had a team as talent stacked as Molly like come back with as much talent as they did this year.
Yeah, but their competition is really stiff.
It's true. It's true.
I think that I know that you're not as high on mixtape as I am, but I think that when you look at their competition, it feels a little bit more open. Like there isn't. Molly Brown has two teams that we feel like are really elite, and then you still feel like Scandal and Phoenix and Flipside and others are pretty good. Well, in mixed, Exist obviously is your top challenger, and I think BFG might put in the same category. But after that, there are good teams, but I don't know if I see great teams. So I don't know. Maybe mixtape to me is a better case for a repeat than Molly Brown.
I think I'm skeptical of mixtape losing Kelly Johnson. Really am.
Understandable.
I just don't know if their results have me a little shook right now. We'll see. I'm reserving judgment until we get into the heart of the season. But yeah, I mean it's pretty interesting. I think it's not the likely outcome, but I think it's definitely one of the teams to repeat seems like a decent bet.
Great question from Teresa. And if you want to submit a question of the week for our question of the week mailbag, you can email us, deeplook@ultiworld.com, or get us on Twitter, deeplookpod, or hit us in the Discord. Maybe we'll be on Threads soon. Who knows? I don't know. I said Twitter, but I guess I should have said X. You can X us.
Stupid. We are on Threads. We're officially on Threads.
Ultiworld is, but I don't think Deep Look has its own thread yet.
We're not making a Threads account for Deep Look. No chance. That is going to do it for this edition of Deep Look. We will be back with you next week to talk US Open. Get you ready for all the action there. Keith and I will both be out in Denver, Aurora, I suppose, for the tournament. And make sure you stay tuned for our subscriber-only bonus segment Out the Back, where we're talking our AUDL pre-playoff picks for who's going to win it all, and maybe some kind of sleeper picks as well. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. We'll talk to you next week right here on Deep Look.